Good morning, my sweet angels. Okay, we are starting my favorites, the medieval period in Europe. Okay, so I'll move my big old head for a minute. All right, we are actually starting out with a whole lot of review for you. A lot of this stuff that we're going to be reviewing is stuff that you should remember, you should have already learned, you should already know from AP World History. Okay, we'll get into the new stuff after we review this. I know, review. Okay, so first of all, our time periods dividing up the medieval period. You have basically around the year 500-ish. Okay, it's not exact, but 500-ish to about 1000-ish being considered the early medieval period, which is when like all of those Germanic kingdoms all of those Germanic tribes who were like inching into Rome that we talked about, this is when they start consolidating and creating actual like kingdoms. Okay. Now it's not like that stops as soon as you get to the Gothic period, but by the Gothic period, which is around, look, I marked on myself by accident. Oops. Anyway, which is around 1000 to about 250. By that time, most of the kingdoms are fairly well established. Not all, not even close, but most of them are slightly established and they're going to start growing, as well as the church. The Gothic period is all about, the Roman Catholic Church and the kings, and a lot of like headbutting, a lot of power struggles, a lot of who's in charge, the king or the pope? Okay. Then we move into roughly the late Middle Ages, or some people call it the high Middle Ages. Ha ha ha, okay, get over it. But it's roughly 1250 to about 1500 in some places. Now, if you remember, like Italy by then, down here, Italy, by the 1500s, they're already like full-fledged Renaissance, okay? So just know these dates. I mean, when you're dealing with Europe and all these different kingdoms and all these different, places, it's not like an exact date, okay? So as we move, you remember these tribes. Yes, you saw this map. We made it all ugly. The yellow is roughly Rome, okay? And then we have a lot of our Germanic tribes that are going to move in, and they're the ones who actually like create what we think of as like, I don't know, modern European kingdoms, okay? So you remember this map, yeah? And then that holy mess. What a mess. All those Germanic peoples. I love them. For the most part, you have the Angles and the Saxons coming up here. You also have a crap load of Saxons staying down here, okay? You have, for the most part, the Norsemen up here, yeah? Norway. I was going to say Scandinavia. I mean, that's true, but Norway, Sweden, and then Denmark up here. For the most part, you have the Visigoths over here. Those are my personal favorites, with Alaric the Visigoth. For the most part, you have the Ostrogoths over here. And then for the Franks. I forgot about the Franks. So that's a big deal. The Franks are a big one. And then you have down here will be the Vandals. And if you look at that, once things kind of start to settle down a little bit, it looks a little bit more like this. Where you have the Franks up here. And the Franks, of course, will turn into France. You have the Visigoths down here, and they will mix more with other groups as well as the Muslims that move in, and they will eventually form the modern Spanish. The Vandals are down here, and they will move into like down here and create the Kingdom of Naples. And then right here you have the Ostrogoths. Now don't forget over here, remember Eastern Europe, just kidding. Remember Eastern Rome? Ugh. When the Roman Empire gets divided up, we have the Roman Empire, East and West, and it turns into the Byzantine Empire, all that pink stuff. Kind of purple, I guess. I don't know if it's pink or purple. Whatever, okay? So this is the Europe right now that we're starting to deal with. Oh, up here too, we will have, we're not there yet. Just kidding. I was going to say we'll have England, but we're not there yet. Okay, so as we move, review of the Catholic Church. I'll put my head down here right now, and then I'll move it at the top in a minute. Man, it's early, y'all, and I am not all awake. Woo. Okay, the church. At this point in history, as Christianity is spreading, you do still have a whole lot of pagans. Okay, so the polytheistic beliefs of the Germanic peoples, the barbarian peoples, you do still have a whole lot of those people. But really, man, I'm sorry. Christianity is just starting to move through like wildfire, really. Right now, you don't have a lot of choices as far as like the church that you're going to go to. If you're Christian, you're Catholic. There were some like other groups kind of like underlying. Hold on. I was going to say, happy day, I'm off journey. Oh, have fun. But there were some groups that were kind of like on the underneath, you know. But for the most part, if you're Christian, you're Catholic. Okay. Now, please remember, moving my head up. Please remember, the churches, they're not just going to spread Christianity or teach Jesus. Especially with Charlemagne, he really gets this going, where the churches are also going to be the schools, okay? The noble kids, the royal kids, they're going to go to these like monks who work in these monasteries and teach the kids. What are they teaching them? Bible. How are they learning to read? Bible. How are they learning math and science and all that stuff? Bible. So right now, the Bible is really the only textbook, and monks are teaching the noble kids, but at least they're learning how to read and write, and they're starting to get the creative mind going. Yeah? Then, also, please remember the hierarchy of the church. At the very top, you have the Pope, the father of the church, and he's in charge of like all the Catholic churches, all of them. He's in charge, okay? He will start wielding some political power as well over time. That matters because that's going to start causing some some power struggles with the like local kings in the areas. England has a lot of power struggles with the Pope. The Holy Roman Empire, oh my gosh. The Holy Roman Empire just fights with them like crazy. Like, who has the power? Is it the king? Well, the emperor. Or is it the Pope? So there's going to be a lot of power struggles, okay? Underneath the Pope, you have the cardinals, and then under them you have the bishops, and then under them you have the priests who are in charge of just like one church, and then under them you have the monks and the nuns, who quite often were seen as the most Christian, the most religious, the least political. Okay, so quick review of that. And now feudalism. Feudalism is really complicated if you let it be, but you should already know feudalism. Remember, feudalism is that social hierarchy, but it's not just social, it's also economic, it's also political. Feudalism is like everything wrapped up, where you have those oaths that were taken. Do you remember? Taking oaths. The king has oaths taken to him, okay? Oaths of loyalty, oaths of service. And if you remember, the nobles, they're called vassals. Do I have the word on here? I don't, but I know it's one of your vocab words. But the vassals, they take an oath to the king that they promise to serve the king however he needs it. He might need it in military situations, he might need it in political situations, he might need it in messenger situations. However the king needs service, they take an oath. An oath. Again, remember, today we break our promises every 5 seconds. They didn't. They didn't. These oaths are like your word mattered. What you said mattered. And so these oaths are a big deal to these men. You break an oath, could be torture or death. Torture and death even, not even or. Torture and or, whatever, and or. Yeah, like it's a big deal. You could even get stripped of your nobility, kicked out, whatever. So it's a big deal. It's not just like today where it's like, Mom, I promise I'll take out the trash. And then you forget, and mom's just mad for a few days. Like it's big time. And for the most part, the vassals, the nobles, are promising service to the king, while the king or emperor is promising rewards to the vassals. It could be rewards in the form of money. It could be rewards in the form of land. It could be rewards in the form of title. I guess that's land, but whatever. It could be rewards in the form of a marriage that would prosper the family. It could be rewards of any kind, any kind. Okay. King rewards, vassal serves. Now on the flip side with the peasants, okay, the peasants and the serfs. The peasants and the serfs, they don't promise to serve, they promise to provide. So again, the serfs on the farms, they are providing the food for the nobles. The peasants in the cities, the shoemaker provides shoes if the king says, I need a pair of shoes. They don't necessarily have to pay. That's their, like, I don't know, it's almost like a service tax, but it's not, because they still have to pay taxes too. Oh my goodness, look at my roots, you guys. Look. I will dye them, I promise. Kind of like my hair is. Okay, so that was my squirrel moment. Squirrel. Okay. So we have this situation like this. You should remember this. Like, we drew this. We talked about this. This is the social structure, the economic structure, the political structure of the medieval period. Heck yeah. You have the Pope at the very top. Okay? Pope at the very top. Again, there's going to be a ton of like king and emperor struggles trying to get up to the top, saying, you know what? I have control of earthly situations, of political situations. You, Pope, you should only have control of spiritual situations. But right now, the Pope has the power. Period. If you have an emperor, he might be in between the Pope and the king. But if you don't have an emperor, then the king is next. Okay? And the king, if you remember, is a lord. Lord. In the medieval period, there's basically 3 social classes: a lord, a noble, and a peasant. You're like, nuh-uh, the lord. Remember, the lord owns land. Now, a noble also could own land, but technically they've moved up to that lord level if they own land. Every noble doesn't own land. If you have a peasant who went to war and was such a beast on the battlefield, he gets knighted, right? Well, technically he is a noble. He is. He's one of the low nobles. He's a knight. He doesn't own land. Just because you suddenly get a title of like sir to be a knight doesn't mean you automatically have tons of money. It doesn't mean you automatically have a chunk of land. We do have some nobles who don't have land. Okay. Now, moving down to that noble level, technically the highest nobles are called the vassals. The vassals. And they're the ones who just serve the king however the king needs. Okay. Then you have the knights, who are the low nobles. You could have vassals who are also knights. You could have kings who are knights. Okay. Everything is a little bit, but the knights are considered the lower nobles because they're the ones that could be made into a noble by being knighted. Vassals, only if you do something like so massively amazing do you become like, do you go from a peasant to a vassal. That's not the norm. Okay. And then we stick the clergy in with the nobility. I know a whole lot of them are poor. The monks and the nuns have like a lot of what's the money, or what's the word? I just did something. You don't know what it is. Means like they've said no money. I'm going to be poor. A lot of people, the monks and the nuns did that. Some of the priests are poor. I know, but we stick the clergy here because we do have bishops and cardinals who have some money. I've been to the bishop's palace in whatever that city was, Germany. That was a palace. And he's just a bishop. They have money. But we also have poor. But anyway, they kind of go here. And then you have the peasantry. The peasants are typically considered the city peasants. The merchants and artisans who are making and selling things. And then at the very bottom of the barrel, you have the serfs, who are working off of the land. They're tied to the land. Now remember, they're not slaves. They get protection in return for provision. So they provide whatever they have. The crops, if you're the lumberjack serf, then you provide wood and stuff. If you're the good morning, if you're the, I don't know, whatever, the sheep shearer, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. You provide, and the kings, they protect. Okie dokie. I'm recording. Y'all are all in black. Oh, I just love it. Huh. Yeah. Actually, I have some blue on today. Whoa. Okay, so if you look at all of this, this is everything I just told you. You're like, this is everything I just told you. Just pause the video right now and get all this stuff, okay? The Lord is at the top. He owns land. Typically the kings, typically high nobles. Underneath the vassal, high noble. Quite often they're going to own land as well. They serve the king. Underneath the knight, they're the low nobles. Okay, they fight. And then, all this code of chivalry stuff. Here, let me move this. There we go. All this code of chivalry. They're supposed to fight with honor. They're supposed to live their lives with honor. They're supposed to work for the good of the people. I mean, they're supposed to. Of course, some knights did. A whole lot of them worked for the wealth that they got, but whatever. And then the rest of it, again, if you need to pause the video, pause the video. These are the peasants. Some work in the cities. They're the merchants and the artisans. Some, actually the majority, are the serfs. The serfs are tied to the land. They're the merchant. I'm sorry. Bye, guys. Not merchants. They're the farmers. They're the ranchers. They're the whatever. They're tied to the land. They cannot leave. Okie dokie. Okay. Everybody lives on the, I thought I switched the page. I guess it flipped back. Everybody lives on the manor. Remember the manor? The manor is not just the palace. Oh, there is no palace at this time. I know we already talked about this in AP World last year, but remember, palaces don't have like a fortified wall around them. A castle typically has a strong fortified wall to keep people out. Because again, if you remember the medieval period, those kingdoms are constantly at war. So they're all like fortifying themselves. Okay. So anyway, the manor is not just the castle. The manor is the castle, as well as the city around the castle, as well as all of the land that the serfs live on outside of the castle. Okay. Typically, they run themselves. For the most part, they're pretty much self-sufficient. They have everything that they need. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't trade with other kingdoms in the area, other towns, whatever. But they're fairly self-sufficient. Okay. If you need to pause it. This, remember, I even showed you this picture in AP World. This is your basic medieval manor. You have the castle back there, and then the town in here, and then it's fortified with a big old wall around it. The knights will be holed up here, and they're like with not guns, with bow and arrows and stuff. Okay. And you notice in this particular picture, it's just a picture, but they have this city and castle up on a hill. That's pretty normal. Over here, you see a little river around it. Helps with a little bit more of the defense, as well as like we need a river for farming. And then out here, we have where all the serfs would live and where they would work. Oh, and you have your little serf church way out here. Now, it doesn't mean the serfs can't go to the big like cathedral inside the city. They can. Absolutely. It's a long walk to go all the way and then all the way. So quite often you had a small like little, I don't know, serf church out here. Okay. All right. We are going to stop there. Quick review. And now we're getting into the new stuff. As soon as I find the stop button.